All right, greetings everybody, and welcome to a new year and a new catalog. Dave, you ready to go through all this thing?
It's that time, Ryan. It's catalog.
Catalogs. So we've got physical copies in hand. These are in their way out to all of you now. If you hadn't had a chance to see this yet, of course, it is all online as of this morning. So you can go to Lionel.com and click on the catalog link there and see everything up front.
Yeah.
And close in there. I want to make a point as we get started on this. We're going to break this show into two pieces this go around because it's such a large catalog. And we'll be covering the first half of the catalog today, the scale section up through standard O rolling stock. And then Megan and Megan will be on next Tuesday to cover the traditional and Christmas parts of the catalog. For American Flyer fans, you can find the American Flyer catalog video up online as well on our social media if you want to see me run through that one. So we've got a lot of things out there. The printed catalog itself, because of the shortage in paper this year, like everything else, as thick as it is only the part that we will be covering today. So we'll get through the printed portion of the catalog today, and then work our way through the other parts on Tuesday with Megan and Megan. So with that, Dave, I think we should probably jump in and get started. You've got your engineer's hat on, so I guess that means you're telling me you're driving on this one, and I'll just start shoveling here.
The puns are never ending with you, and I love it. This is an exciting catalog, though. It's probably one of the largest in terms of at least scale offerings that we've had in a long time. Isn't that correct, Ryan?
That is correct. The full catalog is about 250 pages in length. And like I said, that's all O scale and O gauge this time. That doesn't even include the American Flyer or ready to play lines or HO lines or any of that. So it's quite a lot to cover.
Yep.
And
Let's get
starting
going.
right off with things, I think the one of the biggest bits of news to come through this, Dave, is the new control system.
There's a new one now.
Base 3 and the Cab 3 app. And this has been your baby for a long time now. And I'm gonna let you run with these.
Yeah, we are actually going on 3 years that this project has been in development now. Can you believe it's been that long already? Ryan, can you believe it?
I can, but
Okay.
you know, that's because I've lived it. And I have the gray hairs to prove it.
Well, anyways, command control at Lionel dates back to 1994 when the Cab 1 and Base 1 first came out. And gave TMCC control to our new engines, which allowed you to walk around your layout and not have to be confined to where your sorry, let me close the noisemaker. There we go. Not be confined to where your transformer was. And then in 2006, as most people know, we did an update to the system called Legacy, and that brought the Cab 2 remote and Base 2 to your layouts. And here we are now in 2020. We're bringing you the third iteration of the Lionel command control system with the Lionel Base 3 and the accompanying Cab 3 app that will go along with it. And there's a lot of new features being wrapped into the Base 3 and the Cab 3 app combo. And over the next few pages here in the catalog, you'll get a glimpse at some of those new features, as well as I'll walk through some of the other ones that may not be spelled out in full detail in the catalog. And I don't know, I just know I'm excited for this because it's a long time coming, and I think it's a cool product, Ryan.
I agree, and so far a lot of the people who've been commenting online and been interested in it seem to like the way it's been going as well. So what we've got here is we'll start with the first page with the Base 3.
Yeah.
And do you want to talk about some of the features of this, Dave? What will work with it, and where we're going from here?
Of course. So just to first address, one of the comments I saw online earlier today was somebody was concerned that the Base 3 might be a bit too big for their layout, fitting it in on their control panel or whatnot. But I want everybody to know that right here is the prototype, number uno of the Base 3. And it's actually really just about the same size as the Base 2. The whole goal is that this would be a drop-in product for your Base 2, so that you wouldn't have to create additional space or run out of space on your layout. We all know that O-gauge trains do take up quite a bit of space, so adding a command control product that took up even more space might be a no-go. So we wanted to make sure that it was compact enough to fit in most people's layouts while still having a lot of power to control your layouts. So, definitely one thing that even though it is a small size, it also packs a punch when it comes to new technology. And I mean, we got flashy lights. Ryan likes flashy lights.
I do.
So first to start, as you can see in the catalog, we have the Cab 1L remote. The Cab 1L remote is continuing to be manufactured. It's actually in production right now. Probably will be the Lionel, I'd say March or April, right, Ryan? Somewhere around in there. And the Cab 1L remote control is fully compatible with the new Base 3. So you can use your existing Cab 1L remotes to control your trains with the Base 3. And then everybody's favorite Cab 2 remote is also, where is mine? Yeah, Cab 2 remote is also compatible with the Base 3. And then obviously the Base 3 is compatible with the new Cab 3 app, which will be available on Android and iOS smart devices. The Base 3 has a Wi-Fi module built in, whereas before we had our LCS Wi-Fi module that you would connect to the Base 2 using the PDI Y cable. Now all of that is integrated into one control unit and will all be part of one package, so you don't have to worry about separate wiring for those. You can just take your Cab 3 and connect it directly to your Base 3 and get controlling your trains by connecting one simple wire to your layout. So yeah, really your controller of choosing between the Cab 1L, the Cab 2, or the Cab 3 app. And the Base 3 is going to be capable of running up to 10 of those controllers simultaneously. So if you're in a club setting or you have a few friends over, you can have the app running on 4 or 5 devices while having a Cab 2 or even a Cab 1L, all running trains at the same time using one base. So this thing is really club friendly, group friendly, and that will be, definitely great for people that like to share running trains with one another.
Absolutely.
Another great feature of the Base 3 is the compatibility with our Lion Chief engines. So there are Lion Chief engines back from 2014 when we first came out with them. They came out with RF control, and that RF control lasted until we replaced it with Bluetooth in 2017. So for those 3 years, there were a bunch of RF Lion Chief Plus, and Flyer Chief engines made, and the Base 3 does have the radio to control those RF engines. And then the same thing for Bluetooth engines made from 2017 on up until now. Anywhere from Lion Chief Plus, Flyer Chief, and even some of our HO engines will be able to be controlled also by the Base 3. So that means that when you program a, say, ready-to-run engine that's Bluetooth controlled, program it to your layout using the Base 3. You can use the Cab 2 or the Cab 3 app to control it, no longer having to worry about having the separate remotes that usually come with the Lion Chief engines or a universal remote. Now you can actually have it all controlled from one handheld controller. Going through more of the features that really make the Base 3 stand out, another one is the LCS control. For those familiar, that is our layout control system. So things such as the accessory switch controllers, accessory motor controllers, etc. Up until now, you had to buy the separate powered Y cable with the DB9 connector. We've done away with that for the Base 3. The Base 3 actually has the PDI connectors right in the back and has 3 of them, so you won't be limited to one single daisy chain for your entire LCS layout. You have 3 of them now. So you can have one connector that's going off on an LCS line that way, another one going off on your layout that way, and don't have to run just 500 miles of cable around your layout to connect every single LCS module. And for LCS also, since the Base 3 is powering the LCS modules, the Base 3 also has to protect itself from the potential of PDI shorts from the LCS bus. So in the back, there are actually 3 green lights above the PDI connectors that do indicate when power is on. And if there is a short, it'll turn off power and it won't damage your Base 3. So another good feature is the memory module support. Many people might be familiar with the memory modules going back to older legacy engines that did have orange memory modules included. This will still be compatible with those orange memory modules. So when you insert one of the modules into the base 3, the engine information will go into the base 3's database and be transmitted to your remote. And also a writable memory module will be included with the base 3. The reason for that is you'll be able to take this writable module, plug it into your base 2, and download your base 2 engine roster, and then transfer it over into your new base 3. This prevents you from having to go back through with the base 3 and reprogramming your entire roster of engines. So this way you can just transfer over your roster and get back to work on your layout right away. The last feature on this page I want to talk about, and we'll actually talk about it more coming up in a few pages, is the new 4-digit addressing feature that's going to be featured exclusively with the new Vision Line Class A locomotive. And we'll talk about that in a few more pages, Ryan, when we get talking about the Class A. But let's talk about the Cab 3 app here for a minute as well.
Yeah, before we get into the app, Dave, there've been quite a few questions coming through here, and one of them that's popped up a few times is conventional control with the base 3, and if you'll still use a Power Master.
Yeah, so the base 3 will still be compatible with things such as the legacy Power Masters. If you connect the LCS SER2 to the base 3, you'll be able to use other older Lionel Power Masters and things of the like, as well as connecting to an MTH-TIU if you're crazy enough to do that. There's a lot of backwards compatibility with the base 3 in terms of the hardware that it will support. Our goal in creating the base 3 was to bring all new tech to the Lionel fans, but also kind of not leave behind any users or people that have had older technology that still want to keep that on their layout. We want that to still be available. So yes, things like Power Masters and conventional control. Say if you have a ZWL, you'll be able to control the ZWL through the base 3, etc. So it does look like there's quite a few more questions rolling in about this guy.
Yep.
I'm happy to see all the excitement, huh?
Yeah, it really has generated a lot of interest, which is wonderful to see. And of course, it'll be a few months yet until we get the app and the base out in the market. And as these are going on, I'm sure there will be quite a few demos with Dave's and other opportunities for us to focus a lot of time right on this, and it really does deserve a lot of time. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions. Probably as most of you only had a few hours to even look at the catalog and realize this was a thing. So you probably have questions you haven't even thought of yet.
Yeah.
So we will definitely be coming back and revisiting this base 3 throughout the year as it advances along and as we get more questions and feedback from you. It's really great to see some of these questions come in so that we know where the interest is and where the questions lie. As far as cabs go, as Dave mentioned several times, the Cab 1L is going to stay in production, and that for those who want a physical cab, that'll be a pathway going forward. The cabs you may already have, the Cab 2, previous Cab 1Ls, they'll still integrate perfectly fine with this. We will not be producing any more Cab 2s or other bases. The base 3 will be our base production going forward. But of course, we will continue to support those in service for as long as we possibly can.
Yeah, and I do know that Service still has quite a good inventory of Cab 2 components. So they will continue to service your Cab 2 and 990 sets as long as we can. And not to spend too much time on it, Ryan, but I will say that I will miss the Cab 2 remote being in production. But the world has shaped up the past few years, as most of you know, to be very difficult, especially when it comes to component obsolescence and just acquiring components these days. We've reached a point with the Cab 2 where nearly half of the components of it are now obsolete and can't even be purchased. So unfortunately, that will no longer be produced. But for as long as we possibly can as a company, we will continue to support that product, the existing ones in the field.
Absolutely. And the base 3 will come with a download for the Cab 3 app.
Correct.
Although this will also be available for download separately with or with, you don't have to buy the base. If you're a member of a club, you could download the app to your device, and you're ready to go with the club's base 3. So this will be available as a separate download in addition to coming with the base 3 should you if you purchase that. And the app really does a lot, Dave. There's a whole lot going on in here. So again, I'll turn it over to you and let you explain at least the basic overviews of what this will do.
Yeah, so the app, even though the app does a lot, we did set out with the goal to make the app not overwhelming. So if you look at the app here on this page in the catalog, you'll see both modes of the app. The one on the left is the Cab 3B, which is the Bluetooth mode of the app. This tab looks very familiar to those familiar with our Bluetooth Lion Chief app, and will control all of our Bluetooth locomotives that we have without needing a command base. So it's one-to-one pairing from your smartphone to your train that's on the layout. And one great improvement from the Lion Chief app to the Cab 3 Bluetooth app is that you'll now be able to run more than one train at one time. So if you look on the screen there at the engine image, you'll see the little arrows to the left or right of the engine. You press those arrows or you swipe left and right, and you can swipe through the different engines that are currently being controlled by the Bluetooth mode of the app. And this part of the app will also feature some of the newest innovations you've seen in the past 2 years or so, including the Lionel voice control and also the Lionel voice streaming and recording, which is available in our ready-to-run Bluetooth starter sets with Bluetooth 5.0 in them. And then going over to the Cab 3L, which is the command-based mode of the app. This is the side of the app that will actually connect to the base 3. This will give all the features that are available through the base 3, commanding all of the features that our legacy engines, Invisalign engines, have available to them. So really the goal here was to make sure that this side of the app had all the compatibility of a Cab 2 remote. So there is everything from the quilling, horn whistle, the bell, the throttle, and being able to run all the different kinds of devices such as engines and accessories, switches, programming routes, and creating trains. And this also has plenty of tools that are applicable to the base 3, and that's going to be pretty big. There's obviously, as I talked before, the ability to now use the base 3 to control Bluetooth Lion Chief engines and RF Lion Chief engines. And the Cab 3L command-based side of the app will have configuration screens or tabs so that you can go in and customize your database of engines that you have stored in your base 3. There's also a Wi-Fi configuration tool. Some people who use the LCS Wi-Fi module may be familiar with the Wi-Fi PC tool that we had to come out with so that people could have more control over connecting their Wi-Fi to their home router or home network. That is all going to be built into the base 3 and Cab 3 app, so you can do that over Wi-Fi instead of having to connect to a PC. Finally, for firmware updates of the base 3, because we definitely already have a long list of upgrades that we want to come up with for the base 3 down the road that will be very fun, and those will obviously take time to develop and come out with, and we'll be able to send updates out for you to program them into your base 3, and that will all be done over Wi-Fi using the Cab 3 app. And it only takes like 30 seconds. So that's a step above how the base 2 and Cab 2 were done, using the modules and having to download the legacy system utility on the PC. And, that took a little bit more time and a little more PC knowledge. Here, using the app, it'll be much quicker and easier to do. Speaking of the pricing of the app, Ryan alluded to it earlier. But the app itself is going to be free to download for using the Bluetooth mode. And for the command-based mode, every base 3 will come with redemption codes for the command-based mode of the app, so that you can enter that redemption code in, unlock the command-based side of the app, and get running your trains right away. For those of you who want to use the Cab 3 app on the command-based side, using your existing LCS Wi-Fi router and the base 2, There will be an upgrade charge of $29.99 to unlock that side of the app. Ryan, you got anything you want to say about the app?
No, I think you covered a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
In there. And again, as things move along and we have opportunities to do more in-depth look at this, we could probably do an hour-long show just on the app and the base 3.
For sure.
But we've got another 100 pages of catalog to cover.
Yeah.
So I think we'll keep on moving. And for those who are putting in questions online, that thank you very much. We won't be able to answer everyone's questions here today, but we will definitely be reading over them and try and reach out to as many of you as we can. All right, let's get into the world of Legacy and Vision Line, Dave.
Yeah, I'm excited for the new Vision Line Class A, Ryan.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Came
This
up with a lot of different versions.
Yeah, this is not a huge surprise. I mean, we announced this back in October. We've done several teasers on this already. So for the first time, though, you're getting a chance to see some of the different variations that we'll be doing in the tooling.
Yeah.
There are, as promised, lots of different iterations covering everything from the original prototype version all the way up to 1218's excursion years. And so for this run, we've handpicked a few different variations from throughout the timeline of the Class A. The 1218 excursion years, of course, is the first one and the version of the A I think most people are familiar with. And that will have all of the details for her and her excursion years of service, including the pile headlights, the cast pilot. We'll put a glossier finish on this so it has a little more polish and shine. And then this had the standard bearing rods, and this will have the Class A tender that everyone knows with the cold extensions on there. So lots of great details there. Feature wise, these things all will have the same features under the hood. So you have multiple smoke units for stack, whistle, and safety valve steam. We have the 3-speaker sound system, so you've got incredible sounds coming out of this locomotive. We have the kinematic drawbar and the force coupler effect in there, which, Dave, I remember you developing that on the Niagara. I think was the first one we did with that there, and that is a really cool feature that sort of takes that train brake slider from the cab 2 and does it automatically for you. So you get the adjustment of the labor based off of the load behind the engine and the changes in sound and smoke output automatically as the locomotive's running. Very, very cool effects.
Yeah, it's still my favorite Legacy feature or Vision feature that we've done to date, simply because of the automatic nature of it, not having to do it manually using the brake slider, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, definitely one thing to me that's impressive too on the Vision Class A is the all-new tooling, right?
Yes, all new from the pilot back. This is 100% new tooling. About the only thing, well, I shouldn't say 100%. We did reuse the Y3 tender on 2 of the versions here, but as appropriate for the locomotive in its earlier years. But other than that, we've tooled everything here and made multiple different detail variations and casting changes. We've got a couple of different pilots. We've got different bearings on the side rods, all sorts of things here, large and small, to enjoy.
Yep, and these will each feature also the road-specific crew talk as well. So we spend quite a bit of time recording new lines for each engine so that you can have the road name and road number from the crew, and integrating that into every SKU is always a fun task.
Absolutely. And we've got on the first page here, you see a 4-pack of passenger cars to add on if you'd like to do an excursion consist behind the 1218. They'll pair nicely with the other NS passenger car sets we've done in the past. Released only within the last couple of years with the 611, we did quite a few of those. So definitely be able to pick those up out there in the market. For those looking for something more classic in the NW years, the 1238 represents very much like very similar to the 1218 detail wise, other than a few small things like, for example, obviously not having the pile headlights, and it won't have the glossier finish. It will be more black and more matte finish and black and side rods and so forth. But other than those small details, she's pretty much like the 1218. The 1200 is the appearance of the locomotives as built. So you'll see lots of changes on the bottom part of the locomotive, especially. It has the slatted pilot. You've got the earlier tender with the doghouse. The dog houses, of course, where we have them, will be illuminated on these as well. Another great locomotive. 1210, similar in details, with a little bit more lettering, as these got up to about the World War II time period. They were still, most of them, looking in this manner. 1211 at the bottom, similar to the 1238, but without the aftercooler on the pilot. The 1222, that will share the same details as 1238, and that'll be exclusive through the LCCA. We know there are some people who like to double head these things, and so normally we sometimes try and do two variations of each locomotive, but we felt that that would be the most popular, or at least the most popular for double heading, and so the LCCA has that one available for direct order. See the pilot model there, and the details associated with it. Our pilot models come unpainted, with just a clear coat to protect them. And so that gives you some sense of an idea there too. Even though the A is a fairly compact and clean locomotive, you see all the separate brass details there, and just how much is added onto these models to give them that look. And last but not least, we have the what if passenger scheme. We wanted to keep this fantasy scheme somewhat more simple and refined. The N&W wasn't really a glitzy, fancy railroad, so we applied the striping from the J class and Streamline K classes here onto the locomotive, but stopped it on the cab instead of carrying it forward across the boiler.
And then, Ryan, I don't know if you mentioned it too, but we've already made a detail variation compared to the images that are in the catalog, right?
Yes, there have been a few notes that have come to us since then. One in particular on the cover over the steam turret here at the towards the cab. That was only on 1218 for the last couple of months of its excursion life, so we've removed that from the SKUs. You'll have the exposed turret there on the locomotive. So
which does show a lot more detail.
Yep, there's even more detail to pop on this as well.
And then also going back to the Base 3 Cab 3 and what the innovative feature for the Class A is the 4-digit addressing. So I do want to speak on that for a couple minutes, if that's okay, Ryan.
Absolutely.
Exclusively to the Base 3 and the Cab 3 app, you will have 4-digit addressing. Now, what that is, for those who have been familiar with Lionel trains since 1994, TMCC and legacy engines have always been limited to 2-digit addresses, anywhere from 1 to 98, with 99 controlling all locomotives. And that's been a bit of a hindrance for people who especially have larger collections, having to either come up with a road number that doesn't quite match the TMCC ID, or having to double program engines into the same TMCC ID. So our goal here was to create a new way of addressing their trains. So we were able to do that with a new legacy concept radio that will be going into these engines. The Class A exclusively for now, with the future, hoping we're to expand. Obviously, we'll be including the feature in other Vision Line engines, but we're hoping to expand into the legacy line as well in future catalog releases. So you'll be able to use TMCC ID 1218, for example, because I think that would be applicable here, Ryan, and control your engine that way. And again, this is all new technology that we've created for this feature, so that is why that feature is only available through the Cab 3 app and the Base 3. The remotes, such as the Cab 1L or the Cab 2, simply aren't able to take 4-digit addresses, so that's why that feature won't work with the remotes. But full compatibility with the Cab 3 app. Back to you, Ryan.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
We've got some other Vision pieces here in the catalog as well. The Vision horse car. I think this one caught some people by surprise. It's a little bit different. This picks up on the tooling and concept behind the Vision baggage cars, but changed up a little bit to replicate the racehorse cars that were used by a number of railroads. And at one point, racehorses were a pretty big business on railroads across the country. It was the fastest and safest way to move them from track to track for events. And so these cars would be tacked into passenger trains typically. Though they could also, especially on a deadhead move, you might see them in a freight train. But typically, you put these on the front of a passenger train, whichever train was next in line for the schedule, and they roamed all over the country. So it was not uncommon to see Pennsylvania cars in Los Angeles or a Santa Fe car in Kentucky, whichever horse owner wanted to contract with any railroad to provide a car, they would do that. And so up until really the 1960s, 70s, these things were still pretty popular in use. I think right about almost up until the Amtrak era. And so we've done a variety of deco schemes here. The features on this car are very similar to our modern 21-inch cars, though it's a 72-foot coach, so it's car is only 18 inches long, so it'll look a little nicer on some of the tighter curves. We'll do an 054 curve with the kinematic couplers. And feature-wise, you'll have lots of sound sets inside here. You'll get the different loading and unloading sequences of the car at each stop, and racehorse sounds as well. And Dave, you even mentioned that you'll be able to have a quilling horse in this piece.
Yeah, so just like the cars we did last year, the Vision stock cars that had the we did the quilling cow, right, Ryan?
Mm-hmm.
These will have the quilling horse in them. So that'll be one great way for you guys to horse around like Ryan and I do.
Oh boy. Yep, there'll be a lot of horsing around with these. We won't get to them in today's catalog by page, but if you do scan to the back of the catalog in the Christmas section, you'll find two more of these cars, one in Polar Express and one in North Pole Central livery as reindeer cars, because we figured that after a very hectic night traveling the entire globe, the reindeer were in due for a ride back up to the North Pole. So you'll see two of those back there in the Christmas section, along with some matching Endor boxcars to get the sleigh back north as well. And those will have similar features to these, just obviously some different sound sets, including apparently a quilling reindeer. So we'll have to figure out what a quilling reindeer sounds like, Dave.
I'll just wait till you fall asleep.
Okay, if racehorses aren't your thing, you can make some bacon with these new stock cars here as well. We've got new 3-packs of these cars. Like Dave mentioned, these are similar to the Vision cars we released about 2 years ago with the GS series. Those were single-level stock cars for cattle. These are bi-level cars, which would be used for pigs or goats, sheep, smaller animals that they could cram more in if they added a second floor. So this is the first time we've done a bi-level car. So there'll be new tooling on that to put in the second deck inside and the new doors on the outside of the car. Each of these road names is available as a 3-pack. Just for catalog's sake and making the images a little bit larger and cleaner, we only showed one as a 3-pack and the rest is single cars. But they're all packaged as a 3-pack. 2 cars with all the details and 1 car with all the electronics inside. And so you'll have loading, unloading, and car cleaning sequences here, as well as the ability to make a quilling pig sound with the slider.
Yeah, and the great thing about this new tooling, it does allow us to do other animals versions in the future, right?
Absolutely. Yep, so we can come up with all sorts of things to have squealing away inside the cars. Other than, if people didn't like flange squeal, now you can have pig squeal.
Right. It'll take me some time to figure out what a squealing sheep sounds like.
Oh, we'll figure it out.
You can reserve your comments, Ryan.
We'll send you to a petting zoo and make it happen. All right. Let's head into the legacy steam locomotives, Dave. We've got
definitely going to see some new items to Lionel in here.
Mm-hmm. Let's start off with the 210-4s. This is some new to us tooling that will be all upgraded with lots of new Lionel features, including whistle scheme and the wireless drawbar, our rail sound system, legacy, and Bluetooth control. We're going to also make a change on this to use our interchangeable smokestacks like we had in the Santa Fe 3750 series, so you can have that short or extended smokestack variation on there, which is a pretty cool little detail to add in as well. And we've got two numbers in the regular Santa Fe paint. For Penske fans, by the way, both of these numbers were leased to the Penske at one point and ran in Ohio on Coltrane service. We've got the fantasy paint scheme for Santa Fe in the black bonnet. For those who've seen the Vision Line 210-10-2s from last year, which just arrived, you have a pretty good idea of what this paint scheme is going to look like, and it turned out really sharp.
Fantastic.
On that Vision Line locomotive.
Yeah, the gloss on it's amazing. The color, the red is rich. I love it.
Then we've got two Kansas City Southern units. We did a Kansas City Southern stand-in a few years back with our C&O style T1 210-4. So we're redoing that. It was very popular with the buy war bonds tender, so couldn't resist not doing that again, as well as another KCS with the gray boiler. The Santa Fe tooling, also not exact, but I think actually closer than the C&O one we had done a couple years ago. So wanted to add that in there. Again, we've got the because the Santa Fe leased these to the Penske over a few years, we did a fantasy one up in Penske green with the coal-fired tender there as well for the East Coast guys who want a 210-4. It's definitely a fantasy, but it's got one foot in the realm of plausibility.
But for Penske guys, they can get the Santa Fe version, right?
You can get that one too. Yep. Yeah.
That would look right at home on their layout if that was what was leased.
Absolutely.
Oh, here's a Berk I haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah, we haven't done the early Berks in quite a while. Man, time to bring them back. This will also be the first time we've done these with Bluetooth and with whistle steam. So we've gotten whistle steam in these since the last time they were done. Yeah. And this is one of those locomotives for people who just like industrial, beefy-looking utilitarian locomotives.
Well, and the locomotive itself has an impressive amount of separate detailing.
It really does. We should have done a pilot one of these. These things are really gorgeous.
It'd be a lot of shiny brass.
But really neat locomotives. As Dave mentioned, lots of separate detail, lots of road-specific detail on here as well. Including, especially around the front end, where you really notice it with things like the different feed water heaters, headlight positionings, and things of that nature. It's a cool locomotive. Dave, I know which one of these is your favorite.
Yeah, that SP has a face only a mother could love, and I'll be the mother.
And that one does have the bright silver on the front of the smoke box, but the darker, more appropriate graphite on the sides of the smoke box and firebox and so forth.
Has those two shields on the front as well.
Yep. They had a few of those, and each one seemed to look a little bit different. So we matched this to the one you liked best.
And somebody did point out that their SP did have a whaleback version, but this is also a prototypical version.
Yes. Down the road somewhere, we'll get that whaleback tender for you.
Yep, someday.
Maybe with an earlier version of a cab forward or something.
There you go.
Not that we've thought about this or anything.
Not at all. Stop giving things away.
All right. Atlantics. A great smaller steam locomotive. We've had a lot of happy customers with our consolidations and other small steam over the last couple of years. So keeping that tradition going with a more of a passenger locomotive this time, although they did see some freight service, especially in later years. But a nice compact steam locomotive where you still get your legacy features in there, including whistle steam on board this one. And just wonderful for smaller layouts, especially. These will do an 031 curve. And these would look perfectly appropriate pulling some of the wood cars you'll see in a few more pages, or also some of the early heavyweight cars as well. And a lot of railroads had Atlantics. There were a lot of differences. There was never, for example, a USRA standard Atlantic, but there were a lot of commonalities across roads. So we've tried to pick some that were similar and based off of paint schemes that those railroads applied. So and there are some detail variations from road to road, like for example the Missouri Pacific. It has the oil tender. They rebuilt a few Atlantics very late in life with some cool features on them, and were mean looking locomotives, and this captures that nicely. I think the Southern jumps out as the most colorful in the catalog for sure, and they did have a couple of green Atlantics. But to me, the Wabash is just fancy enough to look classy without being overdone. I think of all of them, that one really jumps out at me on the page. I really like that locomotive.
Yeah, but that rich green on that Southern really spot it. I'd like it. I
Mm-hmm.
also really love, and I think you mentioned it a little bit, but this is one of our smaller engines. But being able to fit whistle steam in it really does add that feature. Just really takes this engine to the next level.
Absolutely.
And I'd also want to remind everybody that these do have the new legacy features in our steam engines that we've had since 2020. So these do have the bicolor marker lights on the engine that you can change from green to white, as well as on the tender that you can change from white to red. And then you have 5 different whistle or horn options, as well as the bell has 5 different pitch level options. So just a reminder.
Mm-hmm. And we do vary the whistles by road name as well. So, but even then, you still have more options. So, if you don't like the one we pick as a default, you've got 4 more shots at it. And some locomotives, especially when you get into the later years, some of the excursion engines, they change whistles all the time too. So, it can be good.
There was one question I saw that I want to answer just real quick.
Mm-hmm.
To the train table railroad, all new engines have legacy, still have TMCC radios in them. So all engines you're seeing here today still will be compatible with the Cab 1, Cab 1L, and the Cab 2 remotes with their respective bases, as well as the new Base 3 and Cab 3 app. So we're not abandoning, these engines will still be compatible with all that. We're not abandoning any control systems compatibility with our new engines. So just wanted to cover that real quick for that question.
No problem. Thanks, Dave. All right. As we go on, the locomotives keep getting smaller. This is another new one for us. This is the USRA 060. A variety of road names on this. This will be one of the smaller engines we've tried to cram legacy into, Dave.
Yep.
And one of the things that you'll notice on this that will be different from some of the others, this will not have the wireless drawbar. It'll have a tethered drawbar, both because we'll have to put some of the electronics in the tender, and also really we like to, on all of our switchers, we like to use the tender pickups, the tender trucks as pickup, so you get better slow speed operation for more reliability at slow speeds and through switches, which is where you want to run your switch engines.
Yeah, even at higher speeds, some of these smaller engines alone can have problems going through switches. So adding that wired tether to spread that electrical footprint out adds reliability to that contact.
Mm-hmm. And we have seen some questions and interest in the Strasbourg. We are making some front end changes to this to get it a little bit closer to 31. The USRA 60, as small as it is quite large compared to the prototype. So we're going to have to, we're somewhat limited by the electronics that we can put inside it as to what we're doing with the engine. So while not an exact match, she's as close as we can get it to 31 for y'all. So that's where we're going on these.
And we talked about it too, and in a real scale 31, at this time in many ways, we simply would not be able to fit the high-end legacy electronics in. The electronics, even though we have been able to create reduced footprint on them over the past few years, still do require some real estate inside engines, and this is just a small locomotive.
Yep.
So, yeah, we did the best we could here.
Yeah, it's compared to the B6, much smaller engine than the B6.
Yeah, the B6 has lots of room for activities.
Mm-hmm. And then smaller still is the A5, another great engine. Although this one, in some ways, has more room even than that 060 because the boiler is a little fatter. We were going to do this as a Lion Chief 2.0 locomotive, but by the time we got through all the development, realized it was really just as easy to make her legacy and give you the extra bells and whistles, so to speak, with this engine.
Yeah, and it is funny how this engine does allow more room for electronics than the 060 does. But the boiler is actually a little bit larger and allows more room inside of it to fit all the electronics in there. And another thing that I'm kind of excited about for this engine compared to previous releases, such as the Lion Chief Plus version, is we will be doing additional add-on detail work to these, right, Ryan?
Yes, yes. These have the more detailed valve gear settings. They have the nicer electric headlights on the front instead of the boxy oil burners, the way some of the previous runs have been done. So they'll be the finer detail locomotive, and will look great on a, they're a small engine, so they're small enough that you can run them with traditional sized rolling stock, and they don't look too big. But they're also big enough that they look perfectly appropriate next to scale rolling stock, because they are scale sized locomotive.
This will be a fun one.
Mm-hmm. All right, getting into the diesels. Another new to us diesel is the RS-27. This comes out of the old MTH Rail King line, so we'll be making a lot of upgrades to this. This will have full legacy features in here, as well as fan-driven smoke, Bluetooth control, of course. We will be upgrading the details on the shell for some more separately applied detail parts over the previous offerings. And I like this one because it gave us a chance to do some paint schemes we don't always get to do. We haven't featured enough Green Bay and Western in the years over here, Dave. So that's a fun one. And just a neat locomotive, sort of a middle ground between like an RS-11 and some of the early Alco Century series.
A little bit more obscure than some of our other engines we usually run.
Mm-hmm. So happy to bring this one up into the legacy line.
Yeah, and some good colorful schemes.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, you could get the squealing pig cars and put it behind the Sioux engine. Then you'd be like, Suey!
Dave.
No.
Oh,
okay.
wow.
I'm sorry. My bad. I'm a genius.
Oh boy. All right. Then we've got the SW1. We've got there's a lot of changes happening in this one. So we're using we acquired the shell from MTH for the cab and the hood, but everything from the frame down and inside will be our previously designed switcher frame, like we have used on the SW7, 8, 9, 1200, NW2, Alco S2. So you get a lot of great sounds out of these. Single motor with dual truck drive, fan driven smoke. Really a nice compact engine. Fixed pilots on these as well is a wonderful feature to have.
And we do have the different road name detail variations we'll be doing as well, right, Ryan?
Yes, yeah, there are some detail variations on these. Not as many as some of the other engines we've done in the past, but there are definitely some detail variations from road name to road name here.
And you just keep having to make SP lines.
That SP line is like that Wabash Atlantic to me. It's just simple and classy. I really do like that one.
I know, and I have to buy it because you do this to me.
And for some reason, I really like the flambeau paper too.
That one, I like that.
Not many photos of that, but that's a really colorful switch engine that would look great, hauling a few box cars and tank cars and wood chip cars and things like that around your layout, doing some switching with that. It's a pretty neat looking one.
Yeah, and we got some cool ones coming up too in legacy sets as well.
Mm-hmm. Keep remembering to scrolling my mouse back and forth between two things here. ES44 AC.
Is this the next one, or you got the SD45?
No, we got the We got the ES44 is next.
We can't technology.
Yeah. All right, we've got some great new heritage and military and veterans inspired paint schemes on here. The railroads keep pumping these things out, so we're doing our best to keep up with it through the catalog cycles. We've got the BNSF Heritage. That'll be available in two different road numbers, powered as well as an unpowered version. We've got 4 of the CN heritage units, EJ&E, BC Rail, Wisconsin Central, and Illinois Central. All of those will be available. There's only one of those each, so we're doing those as both powered and non-powered locomotives. So for those who want all the heritage engines they can get, but don't necessarily need them all with bells and whistles and powered, you have those options here. And then we've got the CN Veterans unit, which I think is one of the nicest ones that's been done in the prototype world. They did two locomotives that way, so we have again 2 powered numbers and 1 non-powered for that paint scheme. And then we've had a lot of luck and a lot of happy customers with our own made up military paint schemes here over the last couple of years, like the Baldwin Sharks and the Verandas, which will be headed out to dealers shortly. So we went with a more modern take on that theme this time with the Armed Forces ES-44s. We've got 2 different powered numbers here in a dark sort of stealth camouflage type of scheme, which is really cool, including the tinted windows there on these to match some of those fighter jets. So I think this one's really neat. The catalog is sometimes really hard to show black on black well in the catalog, but there's a lot of detail in that camo. Steve Davis did a great job on this one. I think a lot of people are going to like it.
Yep. Now SD45s.
Now SD40 40-2s.
Sorry, 40-2s, my bad.
Yeah.
I'm just excited about the Desert Victory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the SD40-2, one of the most common locomotives you'll ever find anywhere, but we picked the most obscure ones we could find for this release. Each one of these is a unique paint scheme. So we've got the Burlington Northern 8002. This was the prototype for their Tiger Stripe paint scheme, and the only one with this variation on the nose. So we like that one. And then also the Bicentennial paint scheme as well. We've got the Louisville and Indiana's Veterans Tribute Unit in sort of a Pennsylvania Railroad inspired livery. Really like that one. The Maersk Sealand unit, which Norfolk Southern did around 1999 and lasted several years in service in that paint scheme. So a lot of people got photos of that. That was a fun one to chase. Then the bottom 2 here are some of the most complicated paint schemes we've done to date. So much so we had to increase the MSRP a little bit on it to cover this deco on here. The Savage unit was painted not far from here on the AC&W. A really beautiful engine that's got like a wrap on it with all sorts of fades and neat look on the flag and the silhouettes. So really excited about that one. And we haven't seen it in, oh gosh, well over 20 years now, going on 30 years. The Desert Victory Union Pacific with the desert camouflage. Just a fabulous looking locomotive, and I'm sure people will really want to have one of these on their roster. I think one of the coolest things UP ever painted, and they've done a lot of cool things.
That one, how long did it keep that paint?
It didn't wear that paint very long.
So.
Unlike some of the other railroads units that kept them for years, the UPs didn't stay in that paint too long.
Well, they do in ours.
Yep. Yeah, we're keeping that one around for sure. These will also all be available in powered and unpowered units. So if you want one that's just going to sit on the shelf because they look that nice, you can do that without paying for all the electronics.
Yep. And that makes my job easier.
Okay, SD90s. So again, more veteran schemes thanks to Canadian Pacific. And in real life, these are these 90s have been rebuilt as 70M-3s or something like that. I forget the designation, but they still have most of their 90 Mac car body details. So that's why we went with this variation of the tooling for these locomotives. And we've got each of the 5 CP Veterans Appreciation Schemes, the different camo for different branches of the Canadian services. And the D-Day Memorial one up there, the 6644, probably the most complex of the paint schemes, and I think maybe my personal favorite. But they all sort of grew on me more and more as I looked at them and the art growing. They're not as complex as the Desert Victory for sure, but they each are proud and
they stand out
and serviceable in their own right.
Yeah, they stand out.
And then we've also got a few additional units, including the 2 CP heritage schemes, very similar, just different lettering scripts on those. The SD90 demo, really cool dark blue and teal paint scheme on that one. For Norfolk Southern guys, we've got the patched UP SD90. They ran around for a long time on NS like that. I remember seeing those through here a lot. And then the San Luis and Rio Grande as well. Big power for a small short line railroad, but a cool paint scheme on these, and wanted to add those into the catalog also.
So you're saying UP repaints their engines often, NS not so much.
Well, they eventually got around to repainting them as they rebuilt them, but most of the NS secondhand engines seem to get repainted within a few weeks of arriving on the property. But these escaped Juniata for some reason, which was nice to add a little bit of color out there on the trains. These locomotives are fairly long, but they don't have the kinematic pilots like the SD40-2s or the ES44s. So these will navigate an 036 minimum curve.
Yep.
The others, we didn't really mention that, but they do have the kinematic pilots on them. It's an upgrade we made to the SD40-2s about 2 years ago. So they are limited to an 054 if you're pulling rolling stock behind them. All right, we've got a return of the F40PH as well. Lots of detail variations on these. We've got a couple of different prototypical paint schemes for this one. We've got Amtrak in the Phase 3 and Amtrak in the Phase 4. The Phase 3 units we're doing this time have some different details than the last run of these we did, with the ditch lights and the earlier phase production on these with the fuel tank towards the rear and the air tanks up front. You see the difference between the 206 there and the 401 in the catalog. We've got a lot of those variations that we can do. We're also doing a what if Phase 5 and veterans scheme on these as well, so they'll match the cab cars you'll see in a few more pages. And those were all done with the help of Amtrak and helping us to get those look right for the prototypes, or in their idea, if they had painted an F40 in Phase 5, where they would have put the logos and so forth. So pretty cool looking locomotives on there. And Dave, I'll let you talk a little bit about all the lighting features and the pairing that we have with these on these and the cab cars.
Yeah, and these will have the all-new legacy electronics in them as well. And one great feature that we have with those that was carried over from the older RCMC days is the unit pair capabilities, which are available not only in the legacy remote, but also with Lion Chief universal remote. So if you're running this with a cab car, whichever engine is the front engine will have the signals and the dialogue sounds coming from that engine. So when you reverse direction, those sounds go to the other engine, and that capability is able to be used with the unit pair switch. So if you put it in a unit mode, then it disables that, and then you can just operate it as a normal legacy engine. Hey Ryan, between the Acela and then the Genesis and now these, we've kept Amtrak busy.
We sure have. Matt and I have become really good friends over the last couple of years. And I mean that. He's a great guy, and it's fun working with Amtrak. They've done a lot for the model train community, working with us, and they just unveiled a new special locomotive this week, and that may be a harbinger of things to come as well.
More secrets.
We've got the Phase 3. We've had a lot of requests for more Amtrak 21-inch passenger cars, especially in the later paint schemes. So Phase 3 heritage cars here in this catalog. These will look great with the F40s. I think you could pair these up with some of the earlier paint schemes on the P42s as well. Really cool cars. We've mixed the equipment up a little bit in these. So you've got some fluted side, you've got some smooth side cars, because that was kind of the cool thing about the heritage fleet, was they all had different heritage. We've got the station sound diner on here as well, and then a 2-pack and a 4-pack of cars, so you can recreate the heavyweight train of your choice. Of course, you could mix and match these with some of the Amfleet cars back in the next section of the catalog as well, for even more variety in your train consists. All right. As we were putting the catalog together, CSX was repainting their business train. And so we literally kind of did this one in the catalog and did production art on this as we were getting pictures of them rolling out of the shops. It was kind of fun putting this together, almost in real time,
This is such a
including
neat
the
train, though.
locomotive. As we were just about in the final draft of the catalog before number 3 got repainted into the B&O scheme, so we added her at the last minute into the rundown.
Mhm.
CSX's new corporate paint scheme for this, in the B&O inspired livery, I think now makes it one of the coolest looking business trains out there.
For sure.
I really like the look of this train. I've always liked the B&O paint scheme, and I think this one's a real winner. So we'll have 3 F40 PHs with appropriate details here for the train. We've got a 4-pack of 21-inch cars, which includes the generator car with sounds. We've got the sleeper, the dome car, and the theater car. The theater car in this set does not include the camera. We left that one out here. The previous CSX car we've done does have a camera in it, so if you want to pick that up in the earlier CSX scheme, we've got that. We've got the Station Sounds Diner, and we've got 2 of our heavyweight coaches because, like some of the other business trains out there, there's a variety in here. Some heavyweights and some lighter weight cars, more modern cars. So
And those are observation cars, right?
What's that?
Those are both observation cars too,
Yes,
right?
both observation cars.
They have plenty of end of the train cars in this one train.
Yeah, they do, and the observations can wind up pretty much anywhere in the train too, depending on how they're running it.
I remember the last time I saw this train, actually the theater car was pointing at the rear of the rear engine.
Yeah. Yeah. The other neat thing on the decos with the generator car, they put the curve on the front like the Cincinnati in that gray ending, the early Cincinnati trains on the B&O, which I thought was a pretty cool touch, and it really brings the whole consist together.
Yeah. Let's go skiing.
Yeah. Well, I tried that once. It didn't end well. But apparently me and gravity require friction if we're going to get along at all. kind of like you and I, Dave. If there's not any friction, things go askew.
That's why I'm better off seated in a low center of gravity.
We announced the passenger cars for the ski train a few catalogs ago and promised locomotives. So now we've got the F40s to go with them. We've got 2 different road numbers on that. Again, with appropriate details for the ski train engines. And it really is a beautiful train. I might not go down the mountain again, but I wouldn't mind taking the train ride up it for sure.
You got to come back down somehow.
Well, the train will bring me down eventually. That's better than an ambulance.
You and I in a toboggan. That'll end well.
Okay, and as promised, we've got a couple of the so-called cabbages here as well. Several different varieties, all these based on prototype paint schemes. The Phase 4, the earlier Phase 4 version of the Downeaster, the Veterans unit, which I'm sure will be popular, and then the Phase 5. So these are common cars on the push-pull trains. I know a lot in the Midwest, some in the Northeast as well, and I'm sure actually all over the country now at this point. These pop up. So really interesting cars and repurposing of the old F40 car bodies.
Yeah, and these don't have motor sounds in them because they were unpowered, so they don't have motors as well. But they will have the sound of the HEP generator in them. Right, Ryan?
Yep.
And
you'll have the HEP sounds. Yep.
Yep. And these will also have full lighting and also no smoke, obviously, because there's no engine. So.
Okay. Dialing back the clock a little bit, we've got our F7s. As we've done in the past couple releases of EMD and Alco F units, these are available as an AA 2-pack and then 2 separate sale B units. We only pictured one of the B units in the catalog, but there are 2 for each paint scheme, of course. The deco is identical, so we make the pictures bigger and show one. In the AA set, you get 1 unit that is, both units are powered. Both units have all the same lighting effects and same smoke effects. The lead unit has sound, the second unit does not. But they also both have electrocouplers. The lead unit has the crew figures in the cab. So, but you get 2 powered units in there now. These separate sale B units, we have one that's powered with no sound and one that is not powered with the super bass sounds, which really amp up the sounds in these engines a lot. And of course, all the B units have smoke as well. And we've had some of the ABBA consists down in the engineering room in testing, Dave, and they're loud. when you get them all cranked up and going. It's an impressive lash up of locomotives for sure.
It's a hazard. I have to put like headphones on just to protect my ears.
They're almost as loud as the verandas that are coming out.
Almost, but not quite.
Almost. So we've got a variety of different paint schemes here. Each one of these has road-specific details to some extent on there as well, and deco. We've got the Santa Fe yellow bonnets. We haven't done this scheme. I don't know that Lionel's done this scheme, period. It gets done every now and then. And it's different enough from the classic red and yellow and silver war bonnets that I wanted to do this one for a change. We will definitely hit the classic war bonnets in the future. We'll also do some of the other variations like the blue bonnet and some of the other ones as we can get around to them. These were later in the years and up to the early Amtrak years. You saw the yellow bonnets. I think what's pretty cool about these is they retained the stainless steel panels. So you have that recreated here on the model as well, with the two different color types of silver paint being used to simulate the stainless steel where appropriate. And each of the front ends seem to be different. They had probably maybe 24 or so of these yellow bonnets, and I don't think any two of them were exactly the same. We found two that were pretty close, but we did duplicate the small variations and differences in their front blue stripe on these between unit to unit. So that's a pretty cool little touch on these as well. And then we've got Lehigh Valley. Those will be F7As and actually technically an F3B. They were late phase F3s, which were pretty close to an F7 body. And there's a few detail differences that we're able to capture, like in the fans on those locomotives. The Sioux line turned out really cool in this paint scheme. Union Pacific, which is one I'm surprised, we've got a lot of requests for it, and I was surprised we haven't done this one more recently than we had. So it was time to bring that in there. And then Southern Pacific, which I know Dave, they didn't have daylight F7s, but for those who like the look of this paint scheme and maybe don't have the room for E8s, E9s because you're running tighter curves, I think this is a pretty cool compromise and a nice stand-in. The Cotton Belt had the two FP7s that they painted like this, but this would be unique on the SP. But I think they should have painted a few of them in daylight colors, Dave.
I think so. And the fact that these engines are very friendly to 036 curves means that this is a great option for you to get some daylight scale on your layout that has smaller curves, like Ryan said. So even though I would prefer the E89, these still are a great replacement. And I would run these even on a realistic SP layout, because if I was running SP, I'd have made these.
All right. So if you think daylight paint schemes are bright and colorful, the AC&W said, "Well, let me show you something." These are really cool locomotives. These are the former Norfolk Southern business train units. A pair went to the Reading and Northern, and a pair went to the Aberdeen, Carolina, and Western, and both applied their own unique spin on things. The R&Ns is a little more, I would say, traditional railroady looking. And then the AC&Ws is just one of the coolest paint schemes that's been put on an engine, I think, in quite a while. It doesn't look like anything else on the rails, and will definitely stand out. So these are come in a A-B set because that's what the railroads have. And you have one powered A and a super base B. So this gives you the best of both worlds with power and sound. A lot of sound coming out of these two units. And then we also have for the AC&W, we've got the 2-pack of 21-inch cars and a 2-pack of 18-inch heavyweights to represent their business train as well. We've done the Reading and Northern cars fairly recently, so didn't rerun those for this catalog, but wanted to give people something cool to put behind that bright engine. We can't decide if it's a pinkish purple or a purplish pink, but it's a very cool color and very unique. And put this one on the layout, it's going to get noticed. Absolutely.
And these are literally just down the road from us, right, Ryan?
Yeah. I mean,
it's
cool.
I think somebody out there needs to model the Lionel headquarters and run these engines around them.
There you go.
And then model us up on the roof waving at them.
No, they want us in the cab waving. They want the waving engineer feature as a vision engine, Dave.
turning my camera off.
All right, let's keep on rolling here. One more set of Fs, and this goes along with the ore train set. We put some pretty big train sets in this catalog. The ore train set's a good start at that. If you buy the set, you've got an F7A and B, and then you've got the other A and B available as separate sale purchase. You get 12 separately numbered ore cars in the set and a bay window caboose. And then there are 2 6-packs available separately for the B&L ore cars also. So you could do a 24-car train just out of this catalog, not to mention the Bessemer cars we've done in the past. And we made sure we picked different road numbers. So if you're a big, heavy industry guy and you like industrial railroading and mainline railroading, it doesn't get any better than this.
And I really like that you picked all different numbers for the cars so that you don't have any duplicates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the nice thing about an ore train, too, is you get a lot of cars in there, but they're not very big. So the train always sort of looks longer than it really is. And when you start to run that across a couple of through some interlockings and crossing diamonds, the wheel clatter on that's amazing.
But another good set, especially for the smaller curves layouts.
Mm-hmm. But we decided that wasn't big enough. So we went with the new rocket booster train set, and this might be the largest train set we've ever put together.
I'm gonna start calling you Rocket Man.
This thing is quite impressive. It's the entire train, and these rockets are really a cool thing. When I went out to Promontory a few years ago, you drive right by the plant where these are built and tested. And you drive right past the facility where they load the cars. It's sort of the last industry on the eastern leg of the first part of the Transcontinental Railroad there. You go from 1869 to modern space program right there in the span of a couple miles. It's pretty cool out in the Utah desert. And then from there, these cars get loaded on these rail cars in pieces, and the rockets are transported all the way to Florida. So they travel over several different railroads. So you can get the cars separately and run them behind Union Pacific, Kansas City Southern, Florida East Coast, Norfolk Southern. Variety of locomotives would be appropriate for the front of this if you don't want to jump in for the set all at once. But if you do, we've got the whole thing right there. So we tried to package this because it is such a big piece and there's so much cool stuff going on here. We tried to make it available all in one set and also a la carte, so you could get as much or as little as you like. And if you're really gung-ho, sometimes they run 2 boosters together in one train, so you could get the set and the add-on cars and really go nuts.
You'd have to have like a 400-foot layout.
I've been to a few of those, and I think it would be pretty cool.
Yeah, good point.
For some of those pub layouts out there, I think a couple of these guys need to get together and make that happen.
I agree.
So let's talk about we'll talk about what's in the set, and then we'll talk about the pieces individually. The set includes a Legacy ES44 diesel, 6 of the idler boxcars that are there for weight distribution and extra braking, 5 of the rocket booster cars with the rocket load inside, and then the 21-inch passenger car, the rider car there for the end of the train. So you get all of that available in the set. On the rocket cars, which are kind of the highlight of the whole thing, these are heavy-duty flat cars that have a protective hood over them, and you can lift that hood off like you see up there in the top inset, and each car has its own unique section of the rocket, which you can then disassemble and build the rocket booster model itself, which is about a 30-inch tall scale rocket model, which is pretty awesome. And then all the extra unique hardware and everything that goes with them in the set. So we've made that available separately in 2 versions. You can get the rocket cars by themselves, either with or without the loads. That way, if you're running the train and you never take the covers off and you don't plan on showing that off or building the rocket, we were able to bring the price down of that 5-pack considerably by leaving the rocket itself out for those who might want it. All the separate sail cars for the rocket cars and the idlers have different road numbers than the cars in the set. So if you are going to double up, you can do that. The separate sale, loaded and empty cars have the same road numbers in each. So those five car sets are exactly the same, just with or without rocket load. And then the rocket idler cars, the 6-pack of our standard O box cars, which are scale modern box cars. Actually, the same prototype as the cars UP uses in these idler car services, are what you want to space out your cars. And the lead car has the newly tooled enclosed door and the three clearance bars that wrap around the box car, so that they would knock away anything that might damage the covers of the payload cars. So pretty neat. So if you've got some of the older rocket car sets from MTH, and we're waiting for appropriate idler cars, those are available separately, so you can add those and complete those earlier trains as well.
Good set, Ryan.
All right. Two smaller sets we've got here. We had such a great response to our drawing a blank. What was the set we just did with the GP30? It's horrible.
Why you got to put me on the spot? Because I don't know either.
I don't know. I want to say Brandywine, but it'll come to me in a minute.
What you're talking about.
We wanted to do another New Hope in Ivyland. Someone put it out there for me. New Hope in Ivyland. We wanted to do the BR&W. So we've got the Black River and Western set here with the SW1 and 3 passenger cars. We followed the prototype there and put the 6-wheel trucks under one and 4-wheel trucks under the other. These cars will have the flicker-free LED lighting like we always do. They'll have the figures inside, and the SW1's a pretty cool matchup with this set. And then we've got the Norfolk Southern 40th anniversary train as well. This is a really cool one of all the fun fantasy engines that, shouldn't call them fantasy engines when they're in real life, but all the fun special schemes NS has done over the years, and we still came up with a new one of our own. To commemorate their 40th anniversary this upcoming year, on an ES44. And then you got a nice mix of rolling stock there with the Husky Stack car, the coil car, lighted flag box car, and the bay window caboose that's like their Southern Heritage caboose they have with the Southern seal on there. So pretty good stuff.
Now, to note that caboose won't have smoke.
Yes, yeah, that's a catalog misprint.
Yeah.
All right, getting into some rolling stock. We've got the wood coaches coming back again. We introduced these a couple catalogs ago. This will be the first time we're adding the baggage and observation cars into the mix. So you have 2 packs of cars with a baggage coach, combine coach, and coach observation. We've got maintenance of way paint schemes for those who would like to do use these cars in a slightly more modern situation. A lot of these cars survived in company service and camp trains or rec trains for decades. So they'd be appropriate for pretty much any railroad generic maintenance of way scheme. So they'll look good behind UP or Pennsy or B&O, whatever you may have.
SP.
Yeah, SP. We've got some great old road names here as well. We've got the New York Central and Hudson River, decorated in the fast mail paint scheme. Very cool on this one. I really like this paint scheme. We've got the Southern and we've got the Wabash, and I don't know. I think that blue,
the Wabash,
back of Wabash behind that Atlantic. I may need to get another shelf in the house to put that one up on display. I don't know.
The Southern behind the Atlantic is going to look pretty nice too.
Absolutely, either of those are going to be knockout consists. And then one of my favorite cars in the catalog, just because I like cars that tell a story and that are part of railroading history that people don't always know or think about. And so this is one of the early railroad chapel cars. And as the railroads expanded out into the frontier and towns and settlements popped up, what you found was that the railroad came first. The saloons and taverns and gambling halls and other places of ill repute came not long after. And then maybe a few months down the road, if you were lucky, a church would spring up in the frontier town. Usually when the first women started to arrive by
priorities.
So several ministries in the East developed pooled funds and developed chapel cars, which would tour the country. And if they were on the train you were riding, you could go back and have a Sunday service on board the train, or they would arrive at a town and be set off near the station, and then stay there for maybe a week or two and do ministry work before moving on to the next stop. And there would be the clergy and family would live on board the car and then do all their business there as well. So really cool car that you can put behind a variety of locomotives and railroads, and tell a cool story with.
I guess I should remember to turn my phone off. Sorry.
No problem. So that's of course that's will be available as a single car, and one to get a hold of. We tucked in a few more of those interesting cars here on this next spread with the start of our freight car section for the Bureau of Mines. This is another one that I discovered doing some searching for other things, and then you go down a rabbit hole. And next thing I knew, I was reading up on these really cool heavyweight passenger cars that the Department of Interior had, which would be sent around to different coal mines for education, training, inspections, also for disaster relief and emergencies if you had something at the mines. And so these could literally show up in any freight train headed to any branch line coal mine that you may have. And so many model railroads have at least one coal mine on them. So it seems like a natural fit to add these into your collection. And they were in service for a good long while, from the early 1940s, I think, to the or actually 1919, they purchased these cars, and they were in service up to the 1960s, late 1960s. So fit in with a lot of people's modeling eras. And we've got several of the plastic two-bay hoppers based on the Penske GLA and 1906 Common Design cars, with different end details as appropriate. We've got some N&W and Virginians in there for people who might be interested in a Class A, as well as a variety of the smaller but pretty cool looking paint schemes for the smaller and earlier power and steel companies and so forth that use these cars.
So quite a bit on this spread would look good behind one of the Class A's.
Absolutely. More modern rolling stock, we've got our coil steel cars. These are former MTH tooling as well. The hoods of these come off. We've got 2 road numbers in each of the paint schemes you see here on the page. Most of these are based in real life. We've got a few fantasies in there as well. And then we've also got graffiti versions for several of these paint schemes also, which have been very popular over the years. And you've got different graffiti on each side of the car. Very cool cars, and one that, as I said, we're very nervous about doing graffiti cars at first. Didn't know if people would love them, but they tend to outsell the clean cars about 2 to 1. So I think people will be really excited to see these. And we've done the same with our Husky stack. Brought this back. It's a die-cast car, so it tracks really well. Has a great low center of gravity. We've got 6 road names here in normal paint schemes, and then also graffitied as well, with the graffiti on the well car. We left the containers clean, but very, very cool looking set of cars.
Yeah, you wouldn't really see graffiti on the containers anyway, since they're not always on the train, right?
Right. Okay, then we've got more of our flag boxcars. These go along with some of the locomotives in this catalog, as well as some we've done previously, and maybe some that will be coming up in another catalog really soon. If they don't match an engine, you've already seen us do. So we've got those. Of course, the stars and the flag light up with LED lights inside the car. And then we've got our end door boxcars. These were used for larger loads that could be loaded through the end of the car if the side doors weren't large enough. So sort of an early version of an auto rack in some ways. They could also load large beams or pipe in here, or other vehicles could be put in these cars as well. So a variety of prototypical paint schemes. These do have the opening end doors. And as I mentioned, we've got 2 of these back in the Christmas section to go along with your reindeer cars. So you have sleigh return service as well.
Yeah, that Desert Victory would look good with that 40-2.
It would. And then we've got some cabooses. We've got the Bobber caboose. This is former MTH tooling. A really cool car. It's a small car, quite compact, but quite hefty. There's a
Highly
lot of
detailed.
detail inside. It's got interior lighting with figures and details. You've got the marker lights on the end of the car, separately applied details. A really good heavy piece of rolling stock that tracks well. We've done a variety of early paint schemes here on this. And then some more bay window cabooses, again, to match some of the special power that we've been doing, whether it's BNSF Heritage or the CSX or CN or CP units. You want to have a nice matching caboose to bring up your train. Even if it's the modern era, we can still cling to our cabooses in the model train world.
There's no railroad complete without a caboose.
That's right. All right, so we're getting into the last couple pages here that we're going to cover on the catalog show today with our Standard O section. And the idea behind the Standard O line of cars is that it's generally pretty close to scale and proportion, but less detailed than the cars we've been looking at so far. So not all the separately applied handrails and brake detail and so forth, but these cars will look good in a train with scale size power, or in some cases with traditional power as well. And as the train's rolling by at speed, some of those smaller details get lost in the blur anyway. So it helps keep the cost of some of these freight cars down. And we've got some things reappearing here in the catalog, but we've also got some new product, including some new road names on the war cars. And these are available in 6-packs. And they'll be available in 2 different 6-packs for each road name. So a total of 12 different numbers altogether, which is great because, again, these are small cars. So they're kind of almost 2 to 1 for a regular freight car. So you want to have more of them available. And 12 of them sounds like a long train, but it's really not that bad. And then reappearing again, we have our center beam cars, our bulkhead flats, flat cars with I-beam loads, insulated box cars, and the last spread we'll cover here today, the 50-foot box cars and covered gondolas. These cars are also built on a larger production run than our scale freight cars and our locomotives, which are locomotives specifically are built to order. So we keep these around for a little while longer, again at a lower price point to make them more attractive to a lot of buyers. Dave, anything you want to add on what we've covered so far?
No, I think we've done a good job at covering all the scale items. Definitely excited for the part 2 show on Tuesday. Megan and Megan always do a wonderful job on the show, as well as a wonderful job in their categories, including the traditional line and accessories. So I'm excited for Tuesday's show, and also excited to see everybody's positive responses to the release of the catalog today, as well as reception of the Base 3 and the Cab 3 app and the Vision Class A and all the other items we've talked about for the past hour and a half. So I really just want to thank everybody for hanging out with us and being fans of Lionel trains. And just, we've had a rough couple of years, we all know, but we continue to make this hobby so amazing that it just really means a lot to everybody here at Lionel. And we appreciate every single one of you. So that's just me ending my thoughts, Ryan, but you end the show because you're better talking than I am.
Thanks, Dave. I think you said it very well. This was only part 1. We've only covered really about half of the catalog. So please come back on Tuesday and hear Megan and Megan talk about all the great new train sets and separate sale traditional rolling stock and some amazing accessories. Dave, the rocket launcher's coming back.
Yes, and a lot of updated features to that accessory too. People are going to be excited about it.
Yeah, notice how the guy who's talking about it and excited for it to come back is smiling, and the guy who actually has to do all the work to make all these things happen is grimacing. Yeah, that's how you know it's going to be a cool accessory, folks.
Isn't that every project we do?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I love my job. So definitely come back and see Megan and Megan on Tuesday. They'll be walking you through all that. The catalog is available for viewing right now on Lionel.com in its entirety. Printed copies are on their way to our dealers now. and they'll be on their way to individuals here as well as quickly as the U.S. Postal Service can get them to you. Order window on this, you've got about a month or so, and then the dealers will start calling in their orders so they can get them to us, and so we can make a mad dash to get all this amazing product delivered to you by year's end. Of course, that's always our goal with the Volume 1 catalog. The legacy diesels, Vision Line locomotives that we talked about for the first half of the show, those are all built to order. So what you order is what we build. So it's a good idea to, if you really want something, see your favorite dealer and place those orders. They definitely appreciate that, and we enjoy having everybody on here. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to cover. I know there were a whole lot of questions going through in the chat. Probably one of our biggest crowds that we've had on here, Dave, and one of our most active chat rooms, and we couldn't possibly answer them all. We went for an hour and a half as it is. We tried to get to what we could. Most of them are about the Base 3 and the Cab 3, and I promise you will see a lot more information coming up on those over the next several months. It's not something you have to make a decision on right away or start pulling tons of wires out your layout for and making plans for things. Actually, you shouldn't have to do that anyway.
Yeah, don't nobody panic yet. We'll have plenty of time to cover it, and so everybody knows I'll be having a Demos with Dave show on the 24th of this month, so a week and a half from now, and the primary topic will be the Base 3 for that show, and I'll demo the Base 3 using the Cab 2 and the Cab 1L remotes. And then I hopefully a lot of you that are watching and asking questions will be able to come out and see Ryan and I at the Springfield show in Massachusetts at the end of the month as well, right, Ryan?
Absolutely. Thanks, Dave, for that segue. Hopefully we don't get too much snow, and we can all get out there. It'll be great to finally get out to a train show again at Springfield. Very much looking for that. We will have a sample of the Base 3 there on demonstration, as well as some of our other new product from some previews here, as well as a lot of product that's come in recently from the Volume 2 and last year's Volume 1 catalog. So we will definitely have a lot of that. As I said, pre-order deadline it will vary a little bit from dealer to dealer, but you've got to about mid-February to get those orders to your dealers. We'll be doing lots of more promos through Train World and some of the others as well over the next couple of days. Check out the Matt and Matt podcast that'll be coming out, I believe, tomorrow, where I run through the catalog with them and had a great time doing that. There'll be no shortage of chances for you to ask more questions in the future. So please continue to reach out to us. And if you have anything you really, really want to know, you can always give us a call at 1-800-4-LIONEL or talk to us at Lionel, and they will forward those emails along to us so that we can answer them for you. Appreciate everybody. Have a happy new year. Have a happy catalog season. Hope you all saw at least one thing in here that you really want to add to your collection, or maybe two or three, and we will see you down the road. Thank you, everybody.
Have a good weekend.